Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I just wanted to do a quick video, and it's just going to be more of me chatting with you guys. I've spent the last week really pushing to get as much of my garden planted as I possibly can. I've been spending 9 and 10 hour days out here with both kids, just trying to get it done, mainly because we were expecting this weekend to be raining nonstop, and it's not. I'm glad that we have the sunshine. I don't necessarily want to wish the rain away, but it does allow me to get a lot more done. And with our vacation coming up, that's kind of important. So that's why I've been pushing so hard. I was trying to beat the rain, and I'm trying to beat the vacation schedule. We will be leaving here in just a couple of weeks, and I would like everything to be in the garden and established enough that it doesn't have to be babied. My neighbor is going to come down a couple of times and water for me, mainly my raised beds and my containers, because they will dry out. I really don't want him to have to worry about the in-ground garden. We live in an area where the plants will send down their roots and we will have moisture down there for them. So I'm not super concerned about the in-ground garden. And that's also why I decided to hold off on planting my pasture garden, which is all my winter squash and Indian corn. I will be holding off on that until we get back. There will be plenty of time in the zone that I'm in to plant that when I get back. And it's just one less thing that I have to worry about when I'm on vacation, and one less thing that a neighbor who's helping us out to be able to leave the farm would have to worry about. So the thing I want to talk about the most is context. Let me just back up for a second and just give you a little bit of a history, because I know not all of you have been following me for that long. I've got a lot of new subscribers, so welcome. I'm glad to have you here. And if I haven't already said it, my name is Brittney, and I live on about 200 acres, and my husband and his family farm somewhere around 700 acres. So when I say farming, I am meaning commercial farming. They are commodity crop raisers. They raise soybeans and corn primarily. My husband does a lot of alfalfa and sells his alfalfa to a lot of horse owners. So that's a huge cash crop for us. My husband and my father-in-law also raise a lot of cattle. My mother-in-law runs a chicken business where she sells about 80 dozen eggs a week. We raise our own meat birds just for family use. We don't sell those anymore. And my father-in-law has some pigs. So it's a lot. It's a full-time operation. And my husband, my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law are working around the clock, year-round, to run that operation. And then I homestead. And when I say I homestead, I have a garden. And it's not a small garden. It's a very big garden. I have about, even with what I've scaled back on from last year, I had almost double this much space, but I still have about 10,000 square foot of growing space that I'm currently growing in. We're also getting ready to put up my high tunnel. So it's a full-time job with the gardening. I'm also a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 children that are with me all the time. We are a blended family, so my son does go every other weekend to his dad's house. So he's occasionally not here, but otherwise the kids are with me all the time. I homeschool my oldest, and we're on summer break right now. So thankfully I don't have that on my to-do list, but I say all of this just to kind of give you an idea of how busy we are. I also have a milk cow that I am responsible for, and she is currently dry, and she is out on rotation with our beef herd, which is giving me a little bit of a break as well. She's expected to calve somewhere at the end of September. So all of that being said, it's a lot. And I started this lifestyle. I've always wanted to live on a farm. This that I'm living in right now, it has literally been my dream life since I was a little girl. Anyone who has known me, family members, friends of family, anyone who has known me my whole life has said that I have always dreamt of living on a farm, raising cattle, growing a garden, having my kids close by, and having a 2-story white farmhouse. And I am living that dream. So when I get overwhelmed by the never-ending to-do list, I try to remind myself that I am living in such a season of fulfillment, and God has blessed me so much that I need to be thankful for it. But I still get very overwhelmed because this life is so demanding. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because let me pause again. I have a little bit of ADD, so I hope I don't jump around too much, but I started really diving into this lifestyle after I finished college. I went to college for animal science and livestock production. Originally, I wanted to be a farm veterinarian, and a couple of things held me back from actually going to vet school. I couldn't pass chemistry to save my life, so there was that. I was never going to get accepted because chemistry kicked my butt. I could do basic chemistry, but once you got into organic chemistry and high levels of biochemistry, I just couldn't get a high enough grade. I passed according to university standards. I passed just fine, but according to vet school admissions standards, it wasn't going to cut it. So I was never going to get in anyways. But on top of that, I worked with several veterinarians, and it just wasn't what I thought it would be as a little girl. You know, you playing with animals and stuff, and that's not what it is. And I really, to be perfectly frank, I didn't want to deal with the people who own the animals. It was too much. Hug your veterinarian the next time you see them, because it's too much. The workload is extremely demanding, which I'm used to, and I'm fine with that. But then to deal with some of the other things that come along with it, it just wasn't my favorite thing. So I ended up changing course, and I decided, well, I still want to work with livestock. What can I do and still work with livestock? And I decided I'm going to be a farmer. And so I started really focusing my studies on a couple of areas of interest. I was extremely interested in dairy cattle, and I was actually really interested in swine production, pigs. So I set those as my 2 capstone courses and worked on a few dairy farms, worked on just kind of commercial dairy farms, went and toured several pasture dairy farms. And then I ended up getting an internship on a commercial pig farm. And so that's kind of where I started into farming. And it did not take me long. I worked on a commercial hog farm for about 2.5 years. I worked on 2 different farms, actually. I started at a small one with an internship, worked there for about a year, and then I got a job as a farrowing manager on a much, much larger 7,500 sow CAFO, confined animal feeding operation. And I worked there for not even quite a year. And I just hated it. I hated every bit of it. I loved working with the pigs. I really did, and I miss working with the pigs, to be honest. My father-in-law has some pigs, and if I didn't have the kids with me all the time, I'd be over there helping him, and maybe when the kids get a little bit older, I'll be able to do that and help with the pigs a little bit more. But I loved working with the pigs. I hated the system. I was in basically a prison, confined, indoor, industrial, dusty, dirty, just not an environment I really wanted to be in. I want to be outside. I want to be in nature. I want to be on God's land. And so it really just kind of destroyed the vision I had in my head of farming. And so I quit that, and I kind of stumbled into a few different career paths trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. But what I really wanted to do is live on a farm, grow my own food, and raise my kids, have a family. And so I started researching, like, how can I do that? And I ended up starting to watch a bunch of YouTube channels back in like 2015 or 2016. I grew my very first garden in 2014, started teaching myself how to can and preserve food. And by about 2015, I was like hooked. I was getting all the books I could. I was watching all the YouTube channels on homesteading. And the homesteading world on YouTube was so drastically different back then. It has evolved to a point where it's like, I'm not sure I relate to a lot of the homesteading channels that are out there now. I have several that I still watch that I enjoy, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but it's just evolved so much, and homesteading has taken on such a different meaning, and I don't know how to express into words. It's not that I have negative feelings about it, but it's just so different. But I started following several channels, and I started really working on learning how to grow enough food to feed me throughout the year. And of course, it didn't start out with what I have now. I started out with 1 pepper plant, 1 tomato plant, and 1 cucumber plant. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. And every property I've been at, I've had some form of a garden, whether I was in an apartment and I had a couple of pots on my patio, or I have lived in a couple of houses in town and I had a backyard garden. And it just kind of grew. As I grew with my skill sets, it just grew. And then in 2021, I started my very first CSA program, Community Supported Agriculture, and I had members that would buy in at the beginning of, before the season really started, and that allowed me to pay for my inputs to grow the garden. And then in turn, I shared my harvest with them. And it was just a way for me, as a very broke single mom at that time, it was a way for me to do what I love to do. So I just kept doing the CSA, and I really probably should have put it down sooner. By the time I finally put it down, this is the first season I haven't ran my CSA. And I'm so glad that I'm not, because I'm falling in love with the garden again. But I was pushing and pushing, and I was trying to make it pay for itself. And in 2023, I got married. In 2024, it was the first year growing at this property, and I should not have ran a CSA here. I should have grown more at this property before that. I got pregnant in 2024, had my daughter. She was a new baby last summer. And so things just kind of got to a point of overwhelm that I wanted to just give up. I just didn't even want to be in my garden anymore. I did not have any joy with it. It was just stress. It was just a job. And so I've thought a lot about it, and my husband has commented so many times this year that he's so happy that I'm finding joy in my garden again, and that he's watched me bust my butt out here. He says, "You're doing such a good job. The garden is really taking shape." I'll try to throw a couple pictures in here of what it looked like when it got completely out of control and I just couldn't keep up with it. And what it looks like now, I've showed you in my garden tours, and it's not where I'd like it to be. It's going to take me another couple of seasons of working towards that to get it there, but I'm joyfully doing that again. And so I wanted to hop on here because social media has gotten to a point where it can be a detriment. I love sharing my life with you guys, but if you've noticed, or if you followed me for a while, I take breaks when I need to, because social media can be a lot, and you can find yourself comparing yourself to others. And I am guilty of it. I'll look at people, well, like for instance, she's a very famous gardener and I love her and I've followed her for many years. But Jess at Roots and Refuge Farm, I've watched her just bloom into this really YouTube famous gardener, and she's thriving, or it seems like she's thriving. I don't want to speak for her, but it's easy to compare yourself and be like, I'm never going to get there, or I'm never going to have all that she has. And then I have to remind myself, I don't even want all that she has. Like, social media can just get into your brain and make you think you want things that you've never really wanted. And so I'm just really trying to scale back and say, well, what is it that I want? And what do I want for my family? And it's been hard. It's been challenging to say, I don't want to garden that way. I started getting really into regenerative agriculture and no-till practices. And I do still believe that there is a lot of good in those practices, but I'm sitting here thinking, next year I might till up a part of my garden because it's just going to be easier for me to manage. And in this season of life where I have small children and the farm life is chaotic, and I've got a bunch of nieces and nephews that I'd like to be able to spend time with. And the other day I didn't get to spend time with them. Everybody was over there playing and I was here working in my garden. And so I'd really like to just get things to a much more manageable process, because I want to be able to enjoy my life too. Gardening is a part of my life and I love it, and I love being out here and I look forward to it all winter long, but I don't want it to consume me. And so I'm working on trying to implement a few things, and I've got some ideas for some raised beds I'm going to add, because in this season of life, raised bed gardening is just easier for me. And I'm turning a portion of it into a perennial cottage garden, because once I get everything established down there and mulched, it's going to be an area of my garden that is just pretty. It comes back on its own. It's self-contained, and it's going to be a place I can go hang out when the other areas of the garden are covered in weeds and I want to pull my hair out. I can go over to the pretty section, sit down, and remind myself why I'm doing this. So that brings me back to context. My husband and I talk a lot about context because we are surrounded, we're in big ag country, and we are actually the little guys. We're surrounded by farmers who farm thousands of acres, and it is so easy to get lost in that comparison, and we have to bring ourselves back to what our goals are and what we're working towards. And one of our biggest goals is financial freedom. We don't want a lot of debt. We have a mortgage. But outside of that mortgage, we don't have a lot. We try really hard to have the mindset of, if we don't have the cash to pay for it, we don't buy it. Now that doesn't always work. And so I'm not sitting here trying to like preach to you. I'm not a financial guru. I'm just a girl in her 30s trying to do the best I can. But one of our other big goals is we want to have something to pass on to the next generation. We are extremely blessed to be living in Kyle's grandparents' house. Kyle is a 5th generation farmer. This land that I am standing on has been in his family for 126 years. And we would like it to stay that way. So we're working really hard to have some things set up for our children to have when they get older, or our nieces and nephews if they want to farm this land. This was their grandparents' farm too, their great-grandparents. So we're trying to put some things in place where there is something to pass on, and where there is a way for those kids to make their own living, because you got to find a way to join into the farm. You got to have your own business, so to speak. When Kyle joined in farming with his dad, he had to make it make sense. And it's something that we continuously strive to do, is to make it make sense. We try to look at the bigger picture and say, what we're doing right now, is that going to sustain us the next 5-10 years? Do we need to start implementing some changes with the way the economy is going, with the way the world in general is going? You know, we have a lot of really old equipment. What are we going to do when we need to actually replace a certain equipment? We've replaced several pieces even just in the 3 years that Kyle and I have been married. You know, things break and things need replaced because they're broken beyond repair. And so we really try to think about that. And so I want this video to serve as a reminder to any of you out there who maybe are brand new to gardening or to farming or to homesteading, and you're looking at all of these beautifully created videos out there. And I'm not trying to speak negatively about anybody, because I watch these videos. I enjoy them. When I'm sipping a cup of coffee in the morning trying to wake myself up, I'll pop one of those videos on, and I do enjoy watching that. There's value in that. But I want you to keep in mind that doesn't have to be you. Those goals don't have to be your goals. So you just need to figure out what your goals are, what your financial resources are, what your labor capabilities are, what your time that you can put into this. How much time do you have to put into this? And that's what you need to go off of. I would love to be able to film beautifully curated videos, different camera angles, and beautiful lighting, and have on a cute dress, and I would love to do all of that. And occasionally I do put on a cute dress, but I also am a sweaty Betty. I'm out here working hard. It's hot, it's humid. I live in the Midwest, and I work very hard, so I'm sweating. So I don't always look cute. My hair is usually a mess, but it's because I'm working hard. And a lot of these videos out there show the end product, but they don't show a lot of the hard work that leads up to that end product. And I want this to remind you, and that's why I try on my channel to show some of that hard work. I prop the camera up and I just let it run while I'm working, and I speed it up for the video so that you're not watching 9 hours of me working. But to show you, It doesn't just happen. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And some of these content creators that you watch, their job is content creation. Their job's not necessarily the garden. Now, the garden is what they make their content off of. But maybe they have employees behind the scene that they don't tell you about, that you don't see. Or maybe they have a husband or older children that are there helping them. My husband is extremely helpful. We share a lot of the household responsibilities, especially this time of year. During the winter, I pick most of them back up. But during this time of year, we try so hard to work as a team. He has no problem cooking a meal. He has no problem helping with laundry or cooking or cleaning. I don't have to ask him. He just does it. And I am so incredibly blessed and grateful to have a husband who helps with that, because he understands I'm working just as hard as he is. We're just working in different places. And I don't know what I would do without that help. But that being said, he's gone right now. He's at work, and he will be at work until probably 10 o'clock at night. This time of year, I don't see him much, a little bit in the morning. And sometimes I don't even see him at night because the rest of us are in bed by the time he gets home. Now, he'll wake me up and tell me he's home. But I don't see him a lot. So he's not out here 8-9 hours a day helping me. It's just me. And I have the kids with me. And so I have to take a lot of breaks because it's their summer and we're trying to enjoy that summer. And, you know, I want to play with them, and they need water, they need bathroom breaks, they need all that. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm showing a bigger picture of reality on my channel, because a lot of channels don't show that, and that's fine. They don't have to. I'm not saying that they should. Their channel is their channel, and what they want to show is what they want to show, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I want to remind those of you who maybe are just getting started and you don't have 10, 12, 20 years of experience to know the work that goes into it, not to get discouraged. Maybe you just start smaller and work your way up. I did not start with a 10,000 square foot garden. And honestly, right now, this 10,000 square foot garden is probably more than I can manage, but I'm doing the best that I can. I hope that at some point in my life, I have a really beautiful garden with stone pathways and areas to sit, and my outdoor kitchen and things like that. But that takes time to build. I've been gardening now for 12 years. And I'm still not there. So it might be another 12 years, 20 years before I'm there. But we're not moving from this property. So now I finally feel like I can fully invest myself. Part of why I haven't done that is because I've moved several times. I used to rent a house. And when you're a renter, there's certain things you just can't do. So when Kyle and I got married and I moved in here with him, now I have the freedom to be able to dive into my garden and make it my own. And so that's what I'm doing. But this is my third season growing here, and it still looks like a baby garden. And I say baby garden not in terms of size, but in terms of maturity. So I just wanted to take a quick video. I don't want to ramble too much longer, but I felt like it was important to share what was on my heart, because I myself fall into that comparison, and comparison truly is the thief of joy. I try to compare myself to where I was 12 years ago, and when I do that, I'm thrilled with where I'm at now. If I compare myself to somebody else, I start to think, oh, I wish I had that. But the truth is, maybe I don't have the money for that. Maybe I don't have the time for that. Maybe I don't have the skill set for that, and that's okay. I'm working towards it, and every day I come out here and I've been joyfully working. I've had a smile on my face. My kids are learning. My kids are with me having fun. And that's what I try to remind myself. I'm doing the right thing for my family and for my garden. And so I just want to encourage you to do the right thing for you and your family and your garden, because your garden doesn't have to look like anybody else's garden. And your garden doesn't have to be pristine. You could have one raised bed and be extremely thrilled with yourself. And that's great. You could have a 20,000 square foot garden and you're able to keep up with it. And that's great. I don't know how you do it, but that's great. You know, you just have to live within your context. So I hope that that gives you some encouragement. I've got the baby monitor out here and I can hear my daughter starting to kind of stir from her nap. So it's time to head back in and get her. I just wanted to thank you for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Welcome to all of my new subscribers, and I will catch you all in the very next video.